It all starts with a single question asked to an anonymous caller. What do you think happens when we die? And from there, the conversation goes in completely unexpected directions. Some speak with certainty, others with doubt. Some are still trying to make sense of it all. I'm Zach Ansell, and this is When We Die Talks, a podcast about death, meaning, and how that shapes the way we live. This podcast was born from my own fears around death and the need to talk about it. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I'm glad you're here. Today's episode is brought to you by Amori. How was your first Christmas without your mom? How was your wedding day without your dad? If you know the pain of losing someone you deeply loved, Amori is for you. Amori is a digital time capsule that helps you reflect on mortality, navigate emotions, and create heartfelt messages for your children, so you can feel prepared and let your presence be felt through life's many moments, even when you're no longer here. Let your words become a source of strength and comfort for those you leave behind. Tomorrow isn't promised, but your love can be. Download your mortality companion today at amori.life. That's AMORI.life, and use the code WhenWeDie50 for 50% off. Another week, another conversation about the thing we all face. Before we get into it, I want to check in. What's been resonating with you lately? I've been posting more on social, and I'm curious. Has anything stood out? Any episodes that have hit a little harder than others? Have you been sticking around at the end to hear the voicemails? I've been hearing some really thoughtful reflections from previous callers, which means a lot. But I also wonder about you. Sometimes making this podcast feels like yelling into the abyss, so if something's landed, let me know. I'd really love to hear from you. Today's conversation is with someone who's been thinking about death for most of her life. She's a nurse, a Reiki master, and someone who's deeply attuned to the energetic and emotional layers of end-of-life care. What started as a childhood fascination with mummies turned into a lifelong search for meaning, and eventually a kind of peace. In our conversation, she shares what it's like to be in the room with patients as they die, how she began to notice moments that felt unexplainable, and how she eventually came to understand her role as something more than just a caregiver. We talk about psychopomps, dreams, consciousness, and the sense that everything, all of it, is energy. It's one of those conversations that makes you rethink what's possible. I'm excited to share it with you. I hope you enjoy.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. And I'm looking forward to this talk. I've been pretty excited about it. I honestly had forgotten I signed up to potentially participate. So it was a surprise.
The list has grown a lot faster than I thought it would. I think it's at like 80 or 90 people. By the time I get to some of these people, they're going to have no idea what I'm talking about. But I'm trying to do as many as fast as possible. And yeah, I'm glad that you randomly got picked and that we get to have this chat today.
Yeah, definitely.
I ask this every time, and I know that this can be a very, very big question. So maybe just briefly, but why did you even want to do this call?
Well, the topic of death is fascinating to me. Obviously, it's one that we cannot avoid as humans.
Yep.
And so I like being the one to address the elephant in the room, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
Small talk is okay, but I've always sort of craved out.
You can be honest. You can be honest. Small talk sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. Like I think I have that in my notes. Like I don't like small talk.
Neither do I.
To be weird, and I like to talk about the weird, you know. And so,
totally.
I'm also a nurse.
Okay.
And now I'm a Reiki master.
Okay.
So I practice energy medicine. And so it's the concept of death it takes up a lot of my brain space anyway, because I'm constantly playing around in like this energetic liminal space.
Very cool.
And I've had and so I've had a lot of experiences now throughout my life with people in transition, both physically and now energetically. And it has really blown my mind wide open about, you know, what is life? What is consciousness? You know, how could we even begin to put a label on what death is until we experience it ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm here to talk about it and give it a go.
I'm super excited. I think we're going to have a very kind of, in your words, I think we're going to have a weird conversation in the best way. And I'm super excited about it.
Yes.
Before we really get into the full conversation, I already know this is going to be so great. And I think we kind of already got to know you a little bit. Like, I feel like we know your personality a little bit. And again, with anonymity and all that stuff, like maybe you can just give a rough idea of where you live. And then the other question I like to ask is what your favorite book is and why.
Okay. roughly, I live in, I would say, the Mid-South in a somewhat larger city that is known to be very dangerous.
Okay.
So favorite book, this is also pretty funny. So as a child, I have a core memory of toting around. It was like one of those learning, like nonfiction kid books about Egypt. And I was toting it around specifically trying to get people to talk to me about the mummies.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I had a literal fascination with death from a very early age. I'm talking like 6 or 7.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you know what the book is specifically, or do you just kind of like remember like the idea of it? I'm like super curious if you've like found it.
I remember. I should probably Google it. It's like one of those like Discovery Kids learning books.
Oh yeah,
ancient Egypt. And I like remember the pictures of the mummies. And I remember actually walking up to my uncle and his girlfriend at the time and being like, hey, do you guys want to like look at this with me? And they're just like, well, no, I don't
This
think
is
so.
the 30th time you've asked us. No, we're good. We're good on mummies.
So I think like morbid curiosity was like a hobby.
Interesting.
For me.
I love that.
Yeah. And then after that, it was The Diary of Anne Frank.
Okay.
I was very, very into that.
Very powerful book.
And then in high school, yes. And then in high school, it was Sylvia Plath in the Bell Jar.
Okay.
And so that was, again, another, dark
there's a theme.
There's a theme here. So yeah. So I would say those are the ones that shaped me.
Perfect.
In my formative years.
Well, yeah. And I think you're in the right space, or we're in the right space to have a conversation about that thread between all those books. And we can just kick it off with the big question of, what do you think happens when we die?
I love this question.
Me too, obviously.
I believe, to put it as succinctly as possible, I believe that our physical body is released from its duties, but our consciousness will continue to exist. In what form, that I'm not sure. I do feel like love as an energy is infinite and will always be, and as a little bit of like quantum entanglement and energy principles. Is if an energy exists, it's always there. And so I think that is like a more scientific response to that question. But then on a deeper level, a more spiritual level, my own personal belief is that we return to source, basically to our creator, to God, at least for a little while, is how I imagine it.
And this is kind of always my follow-up question with kind of this kind of thinking is, do you remain an individual? Does your consciousness stay you? Or is it you're now part of a we? And I don't think we can really understand fully what that means, or even a little bit what that means, because our experience is me. Like that's just how this world works. So I'm curious, do you feel like you'll still have individuality?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And I base that off of experiences I've had, like more supernatural, I guess is what you could call it.
Okay.
I believe that. But at the same sense, I do believe there's some like returning to source or creator. Like you could look at it as like, if you're more scientifically minded, it's like a web of consciousness.
Yeah.
And so like all of what we are as far as consciousness goes would return back to that like universal pool. And I think that's why in energy medicine or meditation, I listened, I know that you meditate.
Yes.
So I think that we access like little bits of that like state of expanded consciousness.
Totally.
And I think perhaps that's like our closest glimpse into what that would be like to like exist outside of our physical self, Yeah.
I feel like this conversation, or not just this conversation, but the conversation around death, it is all so closely tied to consciousness. And so I've been really enjoying kind of diving down that path and exploring the kind of ideas around like consciousness being fundamental versus just this, we're these beings and consciousness just happens. And it's like, we don't really have a way to explain consciousness with the science that we have right now. And we just accept that that's true. But maybe there's another way of looking at it. And it's like you're talking about the web and this kind of underlying level that consciousness is just kind of everything. And I feel like that's feeling more and more true to me the more and more I get into my meditation practice and more I learn about these things. It's like, yeah, that feels more accurate to me. So I feel like we're definitely on the same path. But I feel like you've kind of like dropped little, I would say they're like little bombs here and there about some like supernatural things that you've experienced or just like through your Reiki practice and stuff like that. So I'm curious how that's influenced the way that you look at death and I guess life too.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's all, so like my personal life story is so intertwined in the like professional work I do. So it's like I have to take you back just a little bit. And
That's
I think
totally
like
fine.
it goes back to, you know, why at such a young age was I so like morbidly curious about things that other people are a little squeamish about. And my maternal grandmother died of cancer when I was 8.
Okay.
And she was sick for a while. And so I think that was like my spiritual hungry way of like trying to make sense of what's going to come after or like what happens to her. And so that kind of pulled me into that, like, and I think maybe there was something with the Egyptians and their idea that they're preparing the body for the afterlife because they believe that it continue to exist on some level. It's like that, their whole, like their culture, like all of that is very cool. The more I've studied that too is so neat, is like they've, like even in the linens they would wrap the bodies with, they were like put like codes, like energetic codes for the afterlife. And then I would say, you know, I had that sense of like, wow, there's possibilities. I've always been a bit of a magical thinker. And then I had some, like, I would say now I understand them to be just some, like, I guess you could refer to them as like flashbacks, perhaps. Like when I was 13, I was swimming in my parents' swimming pool and I had this vivid knowing and like memory of drowning backwards in a body of water. And it was just like shocking, but not scary, right? And so I think a lot of times when we get these like little glimpses of like perhaps like greater consciousness or, you know, things we can't understand with our time and space references, they come with a knowing of like, it just feels right. Like there's not an anxiety to it. It might be a little shocking, but there's no fear involved. And so that's, I think, why that particular memory stood with me. It was just like, I knew it. And then later on, I can connect that now. Like I've had an Akashic reading that said perhaps somewhere in a past life, I had fallen backwards off of a canoe wearing like heavy winter clothing. Ooh. And I was like, oh yeah, I've been there. Like, I remember that.
I've seen that.
You know, you know, it's crazy. But then I would say probably around that time in my life, traumatic stuff happened to me as a kid, and I had turned to like substances for a while too. And I was also dealing with like my dad's health and stuff. So I kind of shut the door on all of this like magical thinking and kind of just closed it down. And I focused on school and I became a nurse. And my first nursing experience was in an emergency room. And so in an emergency room in the city I live in, and I was 22 years old, and it literally opened the door wide open again for me on just understanding that there was something beyond, because I was in these rooms with the patients and holding them and like helping them through their physical transitions. And there was just like too many instances to even count on like how many times I'm like, I can't explain that, but I know that there's something bigger at play, you know? One woman was passing away and she was waiting for her nephew, and like she was unconscious, right? And so she was waiting for a nephew to get to town, and he was out of town, but he was the favorite nephew. And I'm just like, with the family trying to tell them, you know, I don't know if she's going to hold on, you know, for this 2-hour drive. But when I tell you, she not only held on, but when her nephew came in the room, she opened her eyes for the first time. And it's like she knew that he was coming and she was waiting on him. And then she passed. And it was so beautiful. And it brought an awareness to me that, you know, consciousness exists outside of our physical body. There's no way to deny these experiences that I'm repeatedly having.
Yeah.
I would say the craziest one that I would say is like the supernatural is one night in the ER, I had a patient who came in without any family and he was dying. And I knew he was dying and I tried to get some family up there for him. And for whatever reason, it just wasn't possible. So I and my coworker were in there with him and we held his hands and we told him, you know, we talked with your family, but, you know, they can't make it up here, but I want you to know it's okay to let go. And when you tell people, like, he wasn't conscious in the way that we would recognize.
Yeah.
But when you looked at the heart monitor after we're giving him permission to let go, you can tell that he's about to let go. Like, he's acknowledging us. His body is listening. And so he passed on. And I went home that night very emotional just because, you know, that's a heavy toll to try and, like, you know, right? But the craziest thing happened that night is I was asleep and I had a dream. And this man that I had helped pass in the real world, he came to me in my dream. And he was like wearing different clothes, but I kind of got the impression that I was probably what he wore like as a younger man, but he looked confused. And I was in the dream, I was sitting at my nurse's station and charting. And I looked at my computer, and this is how I knew it was like a different type of dream. It was very lucid, and I could see the time on my computer. And I verified in my mind in the dream, like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Don't you remember? You passed on. I was there with you. It's time to move on now. You don't need to be here anymore. And he looked confused at first, and then he just sort of like gave me a nod, and he disappeared.
Whoa.
And couldn't make sense of this dream, right? For many, many, many years. But I knew it was significant, but this was back when I was younger, and I wasn't going to go around labeling myself as any sort of intuitive or whatever.
Totally.
I'm just an ER nurse.
Yeah.
But now that I've grown and been through my own health challenges with COVID and faced some like kind of near death type situation, not to the extreme, but faced my own morality and what that looks like, it really pushed me into seeking answers. That I always had the questions there, but I'd never really put forth the energy to explore.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to Reiki and like other type of like healing practices. Lord, I've tried it all. And it's been such a wild trip the whole time because, you know, now that I've been opened up to energy practices, what I now can refer to my time in the ER is lovingly referred to as my unintentional psychopomp era. I didn't even know what the term psychopomp was.
I don't know what that term means.
Recently.
But I started taking a class, and last week it got mentioned so much, and I was like, I don't want to be the idiot that asks, even though I'm sure there's someone else that doesn't know. But I'm going to say I'm very positive that someone listening to this will probably not know what it means. So you can inform me and other people.
Sure. So apparently, you know, and I want to preface this with saying that through my own energetic practices, I've developed these skills.
Yeah.
But I feel like they exist in all of us. Like they come as like part of our standard package in a human body. And so if anyone wants to explore their own intuition or like clairs or like energy, like it is possible, you know? So what a psychopomp is, from my understanding now, is that it is a special type of mediumship or intuitive clair, like psychic ability where you have the ability to transition souls through the phases. So like it was confirmed when I was taught about this from a mentor. That was likely what happened when that man sought me out in the dream, is that even though I wasn't in tune to my abilities yet, the energetic world knew, you know, like they operate differently than us. And so that was me guiding him on because he was a confused soul in transition. And
That's
so
super
I
cool.
provided him just that confirmation he needed to like push through to the other side, basically.
Yeah. That's very cool.
And it is cool. And now, you know, I've been practicing Reiki for about 3-ish so years. And it's just one of the tools that I use in my practice with working with people. But part of Reiki training and becoming a Reiki master is you attune up to a level of energy work where you recognize that like energy exists beyond time and space. So distant energy healing work, or like connecting with people that aren't in your physical space, but you can connect with their energy wherever, right?
Yeah.
And so I used this skill recently back in March to connect with my paternal grandmother as she was becoming like ill, and we knew that she was going to pass on at some point. She's in her upper 80s, and I was able to use this practice in a deep meditation and connect with her energy, and I got a lot of confirmation. That was some of it, I think, was for my own, you know, spirit.
Yeah.
I saw her, my grandfather, dancing a lot. I felt like, and I've heard this a lot, that, you know, when people are closer to the other side and closer to death, that other souls come to visit them. And I got the distinct impression that my grandmother was spending a lot of time in the astral plane, so to speak, or in the energetic world. And she was spending a lot of time with my grandfather. I got some other kind of more personal messages, but the real crazy part of it to me was I was connecting with her about 2 weeks before she passed. And when I'm connecting with people in my sessions, I sometimes will take on their physical, like I will feel what they're feeling in their body in my own. And so
that sounds like a lot.
It's interesting. It is. I actually, like, my clients laugh because I'm like, I have a tickle in my throat. Is this yours or mine? Like, I'll ask them. And they're like, oh, just recently, my client was like, oh, that's mine. So it's very interesting. But apparently, I also have that ability, like distance too, because I connected in with my grandmother and I could feel like a tickle. Like it was more of a rattle in my throat and my chest, and it felt like a deep rattle. And I just sort of had this knowing that came with that feeling.
Yeah.
That might, when that comes, it will be her time.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I got from that. And so 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from my mom, and her caregiver had noticed. I didn't tell anyone about this either. And so my mom calls me and she's like, so we think it's getting, you know, closer. She's starting to have this rattle in her chest. And at that point I was like, oh, wow. Like that to me was like, well, I just want you guys to prepare yourself. I really feel like this is it.
Yeah.
And within 24 hours, she had passed away.
Oh, that's wild.
And so it was crazy. It really was. And it was honestly from the death of my maternal grandmother when I was a child, and it was very confusing, and I was searching for the answers.
Yeah.
It was like so healing and such a different experience this go around. Just knowing that like she might not be here, but like the energy of her will never stop existing, and it's available to us should we want to connect, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that is so comforting.
Yeah, you found some answers, right?
How we can make sense of it. Yeah, just like finding some answers. And you know, knowing that like on some level we do continue to exist beyond our physical body. It's comforting.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing with this is like, and part of in tandem what's gone on with this, and you've already mentioned it, and I probably keep on mentioning it way too much, is my meditation practice, but like that started up around the same time, and I was doing death contemplations, and like that's really kind of how I got into my meditation practice. But there was so much fear when I started this, and I'm not going to say I'm not still very afraid of dying, but it was because my full belief was that nothing happens. And it's like, I completely understand having a conversation with you and the way that you're talking, you know this to be true. You know, for yourself, you very much are at peace and know what you believe, and that, you know, gives you peace. And I understand that, right? Because it sounds so beautiful. The thing I don't understand, and it's the conversation that I had with my dad and have with my dad all the time, and there's other people too, but it's like the people that are at peace and say that nothing happens. I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. And so, and I do think I am like switching a little bit, or I don't know. I think the percentage is shifting, and I don't necessarily know, but through my meditation practice and some other stuff I've been doing, like it's definitely changing how I look at things, and just knowing in the world that we grow up. I mean, there was a moment that you were talking about where you kind of said you turned away, and it was like, I don't know if I've done it on the podcast a ton, or if it's just outside and talking to other people, but I'm like kind of bashing just like the societal programming that we get. And it's like, you turned away and like just went towards the things that we're told we're supposed to do. Focus on school, you know, learn this stuff, and like go buy a house. And not saying that this is all the stuff that you did, but it's like, there is this programming that disconnects us, I think, from the greater understanding of the world. And I think that's what I'm attuning to now. And so there's definitely a lot of questioning going on. But I do love that you have so much peace around it. And I feel like your beliefs and these experiences are so beautiful.
Yeah, I think that is who I am as a person too, on some level. It's hard to say. It's not like I don't have fears or that feeling. You know, there's always going to be a duality to hold there.
Yeah.
I think some of my biggest fears now are really like what happens when death occurs. It's like, because I kind of, you know, I figured out my personal answers to it.
Yeah.
At the very least, I know that our brain releases like a massive amount of DMT.
Yeah.
And we basically just trip.
Yeah.
So like at the very least, we could look forward to like this really fun experience.
And they also talk about DMT is also the one that like really messes with time too, right? Your perception of time.
So I think DMT is basically like jet fuel that like it gets us out of this like time-space trap that we're in this reality. Yeah. I think that is like a key to unlocking like that broader spectrum of consciousness that is available to us all.
Yeah.
And whether you want, you know, our body does naturally produce it.
Yeah.
And there's evidence in science to show that when you're in a very deep meditative state, you're taking your brainwaves down to the level where your pineal gland will excrete DMT.
Yeah.
So perhaps we're all just like, I don't know, is it real, or is it just a continuous drug trip once we die?
Totally. Yeah.
I don't know. But I think the biggest thing is now my fears about it is, have I done enough in this lifetime? You know, like, will I have done enough? Will I have accomplished what I'd like to get done before my time is up?
Yeah.
You know, like, did I do enough side quests like this podcast? Have I signed up for all the experiences that I want to have? And then not only that, but when I became a mother, I think that changes your perspective.
I'm sure that changes it a lot.
Being a parent for me. Yeah. Because now it's more like, I'm okay. Like, but will my kiddo be okay when I'm gone? Let me be here long enough for her.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's definitely something I think about too, is it's like when I really kind of break down, one of the big fears is just like not being able to experience these. And it doesn't even have to be anything. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna be able to experience jumping out of a plane or anything, but just having a phone conversation with my dad, or, you know, like having lunch with my sister or something like that. Like, not having those experiences, that makes me really sad. But yeah, if there is this connected web and I, you know, get to see them again on the other side, then that's awesome. But yeah, I think that's one of the things. And I can't imagine how much more challenging that becomes than when you have a child.
I mean, you know, like, you can imagine it though, because I think it was your dog. I think that you talked about. That's like older.
I hate to compare any humans to my dog.
No.
I always feel guilty.
I think that's actually a fair comparison to make. You know, like, it's a soul entanglement, and we love our animals. You know, and love is love.
Totally.
You know, like, I think that we all experience the same emotions and experiences, just on a different spectrum.
Yeah,
right?
That's fair.
And so your love for your dog is all you have to compare it to right now. And, you know, perhaps if you had a kid one day, that could expand for that. But until then, it's completely valid. I don't know. I think so. I think you can understand it on a level, you know. I think that anyone that's experienced the connection with anything can understand like loss and love and the grief that comes with that.
I will say it made me think of, and I'm going to say they're dumb videos because they make me cry, but like those videos of dogs sitting on people's graves or like stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I guess I maybe can understand in a sense. I'm like, oh, the last thing I'd want is to leave my dogs behind, for me to die and then them not to have this parent that they've known and taking care of them forever. My younger dog, I think he would be a wreck. I don't know if Jackson, my older dog, would really care that much, but I sure care about him. But that also sounds like kids, right? You know, like I think there's times where, you know, I didn't love my parents. Not really, but you know.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's like, I think that the animal connection too is another thing, because they say in Reiki, and how I was taught is like animals love Reiki and they're very energetic. So perhaps we get to go on and experience them too. Like I don't think that it would be limited to just say human consciousness.
That would be weird. Because, I feel like that'd be so strange to me.
Yeah, to see like your animals in the afterlife.
Yeah, I want to see them. Like, and I just feel like I have a really hard time believing in any, because I think then that just perpetuates this thing that we're special. And I think that's always something that kind of is like always this thing of like, we're special as individuals, but then we're also like, yeah, we're special as a species. We're, you know, it's like we're constantly just saying we're better than everything else. And it's really hard for me to believe that this thing that we're doing right now was really built just for us. Like that just, at least for me and what I believe, that doesn't make any sense, especially, you know, the more I tap into meditation and just connectedness and animals and nature and all this stuff. It's like, this wasn't made for us. And in fact, I think there's probably some people that argue that we haven't been here as long as science says we have or whatever. But like, there's been a huge portion of time that we haven't been here. So if the story was about us, then why weren't we here since the Big Bang? You know, like day one. Oh yeah, there was an explosion and then there were humans there. There's been so many things that have happened for it. So for it to just be like, oh yeah, it's only us on the other side, like that makes zero sense to me. That's not something I can really understand.
I agree with you. And the more I understand energy, or like delve into like the spiritual world, or like, hell, I had a meditation during one of my Reiki attunements. I was with a partner and she was doing like a Reiki attunement on me. And I had in my meditation, it was experienced like I felt like I became an inanimate object, or what you would consider like a plant. Like that's like what it felt like. I laughed with her. I was like, I think you just made me a tree for a minute. And because I came out of it, it was a different feeling of existence than being a human. And I don't know how to explain that, but it was very stoic. It felt very like ancient, and it felt like, I think there's so much we don't know.
Totally.
I think one of the most exciting things is just like maybe getting to the end of it all and getting to know more of what we don't know. But I do think like it all has energy, right? And so we're all connected.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite like personal theories of just like, what are we? Like, what is this? It's like we could be like the microbiome of the gut flora of God for all I know.
Totally.
You know, like it's like we could be like the microcosm of like this huge macrocosm, or just existing inside the creator. You know, like as little germs.
I look at like the pictures of the universe, and it's like, how do we know this? Like all of this isn't just little atoms that are just part of,
exactly.
Yeah, like you said, you know, like the toe or the gut or whatever it is. Like this could just be like another like layer inside of something much bigger. 100%. much bigger, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when we all figure it out, if we ever get to that point, I think it's going to be something like that. Just like this massive ball of consciousness, and we are sent here to Earth School to like basically like trial it out in these human bodies. It's like quality feedback research for God or something. Like, I don't know. Pretty funny though. I like it, whatever it is. I finally got to that point in life, and I guess maybe just attuning to the energy and like understanding that there is something bigger. It really does take some of the pressure off of life, and you can kind of sit back. And I've recently gone through something really traumatic with my daughter and having to advocate for her. And like actually all day today I spent on the phone with like children's services and just, you know, just a lot of stuff that I'm dealing with. But the fact that I could just immediately switch gears to come and talk to you about this, I think there's something beautiful to that. And clearly, you know, there's a purpose. I don't know what it is. So.
There's something happening here and it's magical, but we don't know why. And maybe we don't need to know why. We just get to experience it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to do this call. And I had such a fun time chatting with you. And I think there's so many people that I talk to that are aligned in similar ways around this energy idea. And that's a grand blanket kind of statement. And I don't mean any offense by that, but just like there's a bunch of people that believe in this energy aspect. But I think the really cool thing that you were able to bring into it is, okay, if it is this huge energy kind of idea, then that also needs to exist here. And I like that you kind of were able to bring up, you know, like, working in Reiki and having these experiences around energy and this and that. And it's like, you know, if that's what's after, then like we should be tapping into that now how we can. So I'm really glad that you're able to bring that perspective into it too.
Agreed. And thank you. I 100% believe that. So like I work still as a nurse, and I'm actually a certified case manager now, and I specialize in helping people recover from catastrophic injuries. And a lot of those are brain injuries. So I deal with a lot of aspects of consciousness and the advances that have been made in science. Like I know we referenced something like it just seems like science can't catch up. It's almost like the science is out there now. It's like it's just we as a culture, as you know, we can't catch up yet.
We have to accept. We have to accept
a solid foundation. I think the paradigm shift is happening now, like with stuff like your podcast or the telepathy tape.
Totally.
Or
that was one of the things I was thinking of too.
Spirituality TikTok and all of the things that it's all supported by science, like quantum entanglement. And there's tons of theories that have been around forever. And then when you study like the ancient, like wisdom, religions, esoterica, it all intertwines and overlaps. And it builds that broader idea that whatever it is, it's a web. It is infinite, and it is vast and beyond our full understanding. But it's important for people, and that's why if anyone listens to this and could get a message out to anyone, would say that we are all have the ability to attune to this, the energetic world. And it wasn't until I opened myself back up to this magical thinking that I kind of gave away as a kid and a teenager, I wasn't able to reach the level of healing that I need. And like in the last 2 years, when I really opened myself back up to that and the idea that we are a part of something greater, like I was able to, I've been sober now for over 2 years, and I've healed myself with energy medicine, and I've seen the evidence now in my own medical records. And I just want to get the message out there that the answers are out there. You have to be a seeker, but there are plenty of us cosmic explorers like you and me that are there and willing to seek and talk and, you know, provide answers, because you know, people need something more, and we're all spiritually hungry. And until we can kind of grasp onto like what that more is for us as individuals, I don't know. I think we're all going to continue to suffer a lot more than we need to.
Yeah. I love the like ending on like such a strong note. I feel like I need to force everybody to do that, although I can't really force anybody to do anything. But it was just like, I have something to say. And I feel like that was a great way to end this little call. And I'm so glad that we talked. And Thank you so much. And I feel like we're definitely going to stay in touch and talk more.
I would love that. Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Well, have a good rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
I've been thinking a lot about how these calls are impacting this project. Each one is different. Different beliefs, different language, different tone. But what ties them together is the willingness to speak out loud about something most people avoid. And every time someone shows up and shares honestly, it feels like a little opening, a little more space to breathe, a little less alone. And on that note, I'm really hoping to connect with more people who are currently facing something like cancer or some sort of terminal diagnosis. The episode with Dawn continues to resonate with so many people, and I'd love to hear from more voices navigating that kind of uncertainty firsthand. We've heard from a lot of people who've lost someone, but I think there's something really powerful in hearing from those who are facing death themselves and still finding ways to live. So if you're interested, maybe shoot me an email or message me on Instagram so we can coordinate. All that contact info is in the show notes. Next week, you'll hear from someone whose life changed in an instant. Our caller lost their spouse in a tragic car accident, and what followed was a deep, difficult, and ongoing reckoning with grief, guilt, and what it means to keep living after the unthinkable. Thanks for listening to this episode of When We Die Talks. These conversations don't offer answers, but they do open space. Space to reflect, to feel less alone, and maybe to see things a little bit differently than before. If you'd like to explore your own beliefs out loud, you can apply to be an anonymous caller at whenwedietalks.com. If a full call feels like too much, the voicemail is always open. Call 971-328-0864 and share what you believe happens when we die. And if you want to support the podcast, you can join on Patreon or just like, share, and follow. Anything helps. Until next time, have a good life.
Hi, I'm calling to tell the story of when my best friend's boyfriend was in a hospital bed, and when I came to the hospital, I held his hand. He was diagnosed as pretty much dying from whatever had happened to him. They had removed the life-saving devices, and so this was his final moments. I met his dad and his sister and her children. I met his children, his son and daughter, and then my best friend was there and her daughter. And so as I held his hand, I remembered that he'd been posting on social media that he felt that no one loved him, and he had a lot of health problems and really low self-esteem, and it really hurt me that he felt that way. And so I really treated him like he was a brother in life and, appreciated him in my life. Well, I had this opportunity to hold his hand while he was dying, and while I sat with him, I chose to send him energy, and the energy I sent him was love. It was just pure love energy. I said to him, "You are loved." And when I said that, he jerked once during the hours and hours of his process of dying. And I continued to tell him over and over and over and over and over, usually whispering it, "You are loved. You are loved." I did go home that night, and I was exhausted. I went back the next morning, and he had passed away. Then, life continues. The next day after that, I was coming home. My neighbor asked me if anyone close to me had passed away recently. And I told her yes. She told me that her daughter had had a dream where my friend had appeared and that in the dream, hearts were coming out of his fingers, and that he said my name, which is how my neighbor knew that it was a message for me. Finger hearts are a symbol I don't talk about this with other people a lot, in the BTS fandom. I've been a fan for about 10 years, and I've been to concerts and events, and I've been documenting this fandom because of the positive energy that it gives. And so there's a finger heart in the fandom, and I don't have it in front of me, but there's a saying in there about the word purple, and the word purple in Korean is borahae. Borahae was told to the fans that it means and I'm going to misquote it, and I'm sorry I don't have that in front of me, but we love each other for a long time. And I mentioned that it was my best friend's boyfriend who passed away. And her symbol in color is also purple. And so when I close my eyes, I picture that it was purple hearts coming from his fingers, which I don't know if that was true. And then I may get cut off again, but I did attend his memorial service, and it was during Amazing Grace that was playing that I did feel a warm wind blowing and felt a sense of a spiritual sense that he had been gone to where he's at peace. He's no longer in pain. He's not suffering. And I felt this gratitude from him. And so that's been really encouraging to know that I can believe there's life after death in our energy, in our spirit energy, and that we can't always communicate after death, but I'm probably one of the few lucky ones that have been able to have someone who's crossed over.